Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint Podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James, and a momentous week once again, Will. We seem to be having quite a few momentous weeks at the minute. Our first Weekend Crafty intro for the podcast taking place inside the studio that people will probably have noticed us using rather more in recent weeks.
Yes, time's a funny thing. We've been sort of recording a few things here and then putting them out, and then we've got others that we haven't recorded in here yet. But excitingly, we moved into an office on Monday, which also gives us studio access.
Yeah, it's something that we'd been looking to do for some time. Moved in here this week, gives us access to this and some other spaces within the building. Less of me sort of repurposing our little cameras and microphones around one end of my house that we were doing every week. Gives access to much better equipment, so the quality of the podcast, at least in terms of audio and visual quality, should certainly be increased. Whether we can move beyond our sort of established pinnacle already in terms of content, Will, it remains to be seen.
Yes, but even though it's big Crafty Pint news, the news in the outside world keeps going as well, like in Tasmania, where they IBA and Hospitality Tasmania, which is, sort of the AHA of, it would more be known in other states, the main peak hospitality body. They've received a significant grant from the Tasmanian state government, $240,000 to establish Beer Tasmania. This obviously comes off the back of James Boag's closing. They've given the government back $1 million because of that, and I guess a quarter of that money is making its way to these groups so they can further promote local beer in Tasmania, particularly in the north of the state.
That's right, yeah. Something that was dropped by the Premier's office in Tasmania over the weekend. Caught a few people on the hop, as far as we can tell.
That is how politician media releases
I think we were kind of taking the news to some of the people within the article, actually, and updating them on what was going on. But yes, it's great. We reported not long ago that the IBA had some success getting some funding to get the Tasmanian beer trail, Tasmanian Ale Trail, up and running again. That's underway, and this is obviously further support for local businesses, and they actually said in the media release that this is all about supporting independent Tasmanian breweries. That was specified as well, which I think is great that they're, I guess, looking to support that sort of business with money that's come from multinational brewing company. Talk of a Northern Beer Trail, quite how that will work into the Tasmanian Ale Trail, we'll see. Talk of a Northern Beer Festival as well. All sounding very positive, and I guess with all the challenges that are going on in the beer, in the wider hospitality, and the wider drinks industry, any support like this and any I guess acknowledgement that these industries that do a lot for community and do a lot for tourism are actually on the radar of politicians is always a good thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. And this gives groups like the IBA ammunition as well, that to go to other premiers, to go to other state governments and say, this is what Tasmania is doing. Hopefully they can show that it's working as well, and maybe this is something you should actually think about.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, they're not huge amounts of money, but I think the ROI you get on investing in these sort of small businesses and in tourism trails is huge. These businesses are already there. They're already employing local people. They're already doing great things and, telling a great local story. I just do believe that, for the dollars put into anything that the state governments might be doing when it comes to whether it's tourism or food and drink, I think, it is a very valuable sort of part of the industry to invest in, and I guess and talking of investing in Tasmanian beer industry, you've also got a story potentially coming later in the week as well. Bit of an update for us.
Oh yeah, well, I'm hoping to catch up with the team at Warrandyte Brewing soon, because they've moved out of the legendary Red Shed that I believe is about to be a football stadium that's quite controversial down there, or is definitely going ahead.
Red Shed's dead, baby. Red Shed's dead.
So they're moving into their new home, and anyone who follows their story, I've particularly loved the social media posts they've been doing along the way of getting all the staff to show what they're up to while they're building this new home for themselves. It was Overland Brewing in Northern Hobart, so they'll be opening doors pretty soon. I'm just keen to catch up with them to see what parts of the Red Shed live on in this Hobart Brewing 2.0. I guess.
Yeah, no, great. And I guess talking of breweries that have been around for a while, and I guess going through a period of change. Another story where you've been speaking to someone on and off for a number of years is hopefully coming to fruition, or at least taking a major step forward this week.
Yeah, Warrandyte Brewing. I've just spoken to Dave. So Dave and Bianca, the family that run this business, they started it more than around 5 years ago. Contract brewing. Warrandyte is a very beautiful, picturesque suburb on the sort of northeastern suburbs of Melbourne. It doesn't really feel like a suburb, though. It's kind of almost, it's like the closest you can go to feeling like you're in the bush in Melbourne and not kind of leave, I guess, the greater Melbourne area. The Yarra runs right through it. They've secured a property a number of years ago right on the banks of the Yarra River. They've been having some issues with council. Maybe it's a bit too close to the river because there were some flood overlay concerns. That's gone through VCAT. They've finally been given the green light to go ahead, so they will have a tap room open in 2027, which is great. Yeah, they've really, as Dave said, they've had 2 children during this whole sort of ongoing conversation with council. So they've definitely gone through a lot of life changes, and it shows how long it's also taken them to bring this dream, to make this dream a reality.
Well, if you're not spending time making beer, you may as well be making something else. I'm pretty sure, you mentioned the Yarra there. I think I saw one of my first platypus in the wild in Warrandyte. That's how much it is, that sort of bridge between the city and the country, that, you even get these lovely monotremes splashing around in the waters up there. And I guess talking of splashing around in the water, we've added a new listing to our brewery directory this week for King Tide Brewing in Coffs Harbour. They opened their brew pub way back in, it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually fairly recent in the craft beer industry in early 2022. Typical, community brew pub, big on events, a lot of new releases coming out the whole time. So you can check Mick Vust's listing for King Tide Brewing out. We'll include a link to that in the show notes. They're also looking to hire a venue manager. So if you have some hospo experience and you would like to switch and enjoy a life on the Coffs Coast, then have a look at the jobs page on Crafty Pint, because they are looking to take someone on.
Yes, and in keeping with our nautical theme, Felons Brewing, which have a home in Manly, they've got their beer on the Manly Fast Ferry, which I always think has to be the world's greatest commute. Like, if you take that ferry to work, you have to be living the dream. Like, except for the fact that you live in Sydney rather than Melbourne, I guess.
I think so. I was actually chatting to someone about this the other day. They were talking about some other commute in some other part of the world. I was someone whose parents have moved to Vancouver Island, and saying that some people do this massive commute from the island to Vancouver, even though it's a far longer one, because they want to say they live on the island. And whenever I hear about someone commuting by water, I always do think of those times I've taken the ferry back and forth to Manly. But yeah, I'm assuming like Felons, they've been gradually taking over Manly Wharf, more and more parts of it. Now they've got the ferry. Presumably they're going to send an invading force down to Circular Quay at some point and start trying to take over the whole of Sydney. That was the whole thing with the original Felon story, wasn't it? The brand story, that people sort of came into Brisbane and started settling there. So look out to the rest of Sydney. The Felons are coming for you. And I guess back to, you mentioned Melbourne there, you've got the latest part of your ongoing series, giving people an insight into what it's like to build a brewery and a brewery venue in the current day and age with Black Match Beverages.
Yeah, I caught up with head brewer / I guess project manager at the moment, Callum Fowler. Definitely the most exhausted I've ever heard him, and I've known him for a little while. He shaved his hair off recently, so that might give you a bit of an insight to his mindset. But
maybe he'd pulled so many clumps out that he felt he should just even things up.
They're right in the middle of the expansion, where the production brewery basically is about to be turned on. So there's been a lot of trades connecting everything up, where they've spent all this time putting that infrastructure in. I'm sure a lot of people who have, whether or not you've been involved with the brewery expansion, or I think just run a small business, there's a lot in there Cal talks about of just having so much of it inside your head, and not having the time to put it down, or not being really able to put it down, and having to be the person who's holding on to all this information puts you in a position where you're walking around and every 10 minutes someone's asking you a question and you can't. I think he got 2 or 3 phone calls we spoke for about 20 minutes and he had to leave the conversation multiple times, and then he'd have people yelling at him from across the room while we were talking, all those kind of things. It really captures the intensity of what the build is like at the moment.
Yeah, and what are they looking timescale wise now? Then I feel it's been sort of slipping a little bit. Nothing too major yet, but do we have any?
Well, the very first story in October, they were hoping to have beer out in April. So
okay, only 4 months late.
But they're hoping they should be brewing on the production brewery pretty soon. Kegland, who are owners in Black Match, they've got a festival coming up in Melbourne, and they're hoping to sell some beer at that, so it's cutting it a little fine now, but they do still have their pilot brewery, and they've been putting a decent amount of recipes through that, so they do have some beer. But yeah, the production brewery is very, very close to be firing. Taproom is a bit more, we'll see.
Sounds like commentators curse all the way there, but I suppose if you want a realistic picture of what it's like trying to bring any significant project to life, this is probably what you wanted to happen. If it had all been a smooth dream and it all happened in time, you'd be like, oh, it's so easy, why don't we all do it? And I guess this gives a greater insight. Before we get to this week's main chat, just a bit of an update on our beer club, the Crafty Cabal. I hosted an event with Co-Conspirators last week. They're celebrating 10 years of Co-Conspirators at the minute, sort of all year. We had our Crafty Cabal members down there on Wednesday night. Braved it was a very chilly Melbourne evening, and that was awesome. We had Jackie and Tim and Maggie were down there, and yeah, it was amazing. The conversation flowed so well. I think it was you never know sometimes how these sort of Q&A chats with brewers will go, but I think because we had that themed conversation about their 10 years and going back over the time and all the beers they made, that was a lot of fun. If you're a Sydney-based member of our beer club, then you can be you could be at Bracket Brewing this Friday night for a Southern Hemisphere hop masterclass with Mike, the founder there, and our writer Jason Truan, aka Mr. Inner West Ale Trail. We'll be there doing a masterclass, and we've also got some tickets going on up for grabs for members for Oktoberfest at Frenchie's, with a few more giveaways to be locked in very soon. Which I guess, in nice, upbeat, positive, ticket-related news, brings us to this week's main guests.
Yes, Science Made Beerable. I've always really loved what they've been doing from afar. So they are Tasmanian-based. They run a National Science Week event every year to celebrate the combination of science and brewing. It was started by Matt Fielding and Kelsey Picard, unfortunately because of COVID, but also shows how you can start these things and positively bring, keep them going as well. It's a really awesome event where they invite brewers down to push the limits, I guess, of beer science, and they're both really passionate science communicators as well, and love talking about science. So Kelsey couldn't join us, but one of their new board members did, Reid Barry. So caught up with the two of them about the event. I just spoke to Reid, and he said there was one ticket left, he believed, at the time of recording. So if you want a ticket, you're absolutely not going to get that one, and unless it's just because everyone wants to go with a friend. But the event, anyone, is on August 21, and they've got some smaller events taking place around the state too. So yeah, it was nice to catch up to people who very much who are running a not-for-profit within the beer industry, which is a very rare thing. I mean, the only other one that comes to mind is probably Pink Boots, and they want to, look at beer, I think, a very different way, and very passionate about it, and want to see people talk about it a different way, and put it on a pedestal as well and elevate it.
The other way of looking at it is that all the other for-profit businesses out there aren't making any money anyway, so at least these guys are honest about their not-for-profit. And I think it was the first time we'd done a recording in here with beaming someone in from outside. There's a bit of a connectivity issue, I believe, at the start of the show, so there's no video for part of the start of the show, but there is later on.
Yes, so if you watch this on YouTube, this was just me hosting it, and there is no video for the start, but if you're watching it on YouTube, it kicks in around the halfway mark, so apologies for that, but these things do happen, and enjoy the conversation. If you do, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll catch up with you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey brewers, we've all been there. You've spent months perfecting a barrel-aged drop. You hand wax every bottle and are ready to ship when you realise you don't have the right packaging to ship your orders safely. That's where the legends at Packpal can help. Packpal's air column packaging eliminates the risk of breakage for your most premium products, saving you from the pain of customer complaints and costly refunds or replacements. Supplied flat and inflated in seconds, Packpal cuts manual packing time without adding extra weight to your freight bill, especially after the most recent Australia Post increase. Protect your hard work with Packpal custom designed packaging for your bottle, giving you complete peace of mind every time a box leaves the brewery. But don't take my word for it. Test them on your own bottles for free. Get a free sample pack from Packpal today at packpal.com.au/sample. That's packpal.com.au/sample.
Matt, Reid, welcome to the Crafty Pint Podcast.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us, Will.
It is my pleasure. And for those who don't know, what is Science Made Beerable?
Sure. So, Science Made Beerable is a not-for-profit that advocates for spreading the joy that is the science of beer. So, essentially, we want to make people, the public, more knowledgeable about the incredible science that goes into every beer they drink. And I guess while we're at it, we're also strong believers of diversity in the industry. We come from science backgrounds, which also has its struggles with diversity and representation. So that's always been one of our goals as well. So really, it's about spreading knowledge and advocating for diversity in the beer industry.
Great. And Matt, when did you and Kelsey Picard launch it, and how come?
Sure. So it's a bit of a funny story. And it kind of started by accident, I suppose. So Kelsey and myself were both PhD students at the time, back in 2020. And we were strongly into beer. We loved our craft beers, but we also loved science communication. So we were out doing something called Young Tassie Scientist, where we went around to schools and talked about our PhD research. Now, our PhDs were nothing related to beer. Kelsey is a pea geneticist. My PhD was on raven scavenging, so very far away from the worlds of beer. But we just had that passion for beer, passion for science communication. And 2020, as many of you know, was the year of COVID. So there was lots of funding given out for National Science Week, and all these events that were once planned couldn't go ahead because of all the social distancing kind of laws that went in. So essentially, they were trying to reallocate some of the funding and looking for some fresh ideas. And one of our mentors, Adele, actually reached out to us and said, could you do something with beer and Science Week? And that's kind of how we brought together the first event, which was in 2020 during National Science Week, which had Will from Van Diemen, Hobart Brewing Company, Shambles, and Ocho. So it was a pretty great first lineup as well. And they basically just brought beers that were from their core range, and we all drank them and sat around. And we live streamed it because there were so many people across the country just sitting at home wanting something to do. And we thought, well, what better way than bring the beer science to them? So that's kind of how it launched. And from there, it grew. So a couple of years ago, we established it as a not-for-profit, which means we have an executive committee, and it kind of has a whole bunch of extra kind of sweets to it. But it also means we can get funding and we can kind of be a bit more legit around that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how it started.
Cool. And Reid, were you sitting at home watching that first episode, or did you come by it later on?
I was not. I think I came along. My first interaction with Science Made Beerable was through the ExBEERimental Science. I think it was in its second year. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you absolutely love science. You love beers as well. How about we go to an event which mixes both?" And I thought, that sounds incredible. So went along and had an absolute blast. It was held down in Shambles in Hobart, and it was just an incredible way to interact with the beverages that you're having, but also to learn about the process as well. I knew a little bit about the process, but I didn't know how much science actually went in, and to be able to really pinpoint, or to discuss and flesh out all of those really incredible parts and pieces was really nice. So that first event really got me hooked.
Cool. And what kind of, do you work in science at the moment, or teach science or something like that? Or
yeah, good question. I was originally a science teacher. I actually remember having Kelsey come into my classrooms through the Young Tassie Scientist program and talk about her genetics PhD, which is absolutely incredible. And through that, I remember when Science Made Beerable had that event that the friend told me about. I said, "Oh, I recognise that name, and I recognise Matt's name as well from Young Tassie Scientists. So I said, it must be a really good event, because I knew how much that science communication was a big focus for you and Kelsey. So yeah, originally taught science, now not in science, but still in the educational policy realm, which is really interesting, and part of the Science Made Beerable team now.
Cool. And what made you want to join up to be a part of it in a more sort of formal way rather than just attending?
I had a really good friend who was studying her PhD at that time in Hobart. I have really good friends with Matt and Kelsey as well, and she's an incredible science communicator. Has another podcast all about science, and she said, we need someone to help hand out the beers at this event. Would you like to help? And I said, sign me up. Yes, please. So that got me hooked after being a patron at the first event. And then the next year rolled around, volunteers, sign up kind of went around. I said, yep, shot my hand up straight away. I think I've just done that ever since. I've been that annoying bug on the side of the fly hanging around waiting for the event to pop up. So I said, may as well join the committee and help out as much as I can in whatever capacity I can as well. So that was really exciting, and really glad that Matt, Kelsey and the team have been accepting as well.
A very helpful bug though too.
Thank you.
Cool. And Matt, you sort of got, this was suggested to you by a mentor. You've had these obviously other science comms people that want to come with you on it and help out. And you've got people like Reid. Is this like sort of, it kind of sounds like a beer event where you can just sort of pull everyone together and a lot of people are happy to pour beers and be involved. Is that kind of typical of, I guess, the science comms community, or is it probably more of a Hobart kind of thing? Or it seems like you've gotten a lot of help along the way?
Yeah, I mean, science communication is a very lovely place. There's lots of lovely people. I can't even think of a single science communicator that I don't really like. So everyone's trying to help each other out and see each other succeed. So it is a really lovely space where people will help one another. And people want to go to other events, see what other people are doing, be part of that. It's a lovely space.
And have you met Dr. Carl?
Not in person. Have you, Reid?
No, I've never met Dr. Carl in person. I've been to some of his live events though. Very exciting. Yeah, would be great.
Cool. Sorry, a bit of a detour there. I was like, he's got to be the top science communicator, surely.
It's fine. He's the peak or the most famous Australian science communicator. So it makes sense to bring him up and give him at least some shout out.
Cool. And Matt, I'm assuming that Science Made Beerable isn't what you do full time. For one, you also write a little bit for the Crafty Pint, but what's your area of expertise these days? Still focused on birds?
I've kind of gone all over the show. Like I said, my PhD was in the scavenging behaviour of forest ravens in the Bass Strait Islands. Very specific and very important work that has changed the face of science. But following that, I do Science Made Beerable as a volunteer. Like I don't make any money from it. But it actually got me a job out after my PhD. So there was a job as a teaching fellow in fermentation at UTAS. And because of my experience in communicating the science of beer through Science Made Beerable, I got a role doing that. And from there, I now teach bridging science and math at UTAS as well, in the University College. So that science communication background plus Science Made Beerable kind of got me into a job and a role, and that's kind of established me there, which is nice to have kind of really solid work thanks to hobbies that I've done and different interests. It's pretty wild when you think about the different paths you can take and that you would never expect to go down.
Yeah, well, I mean, beer's not really something many people come to from out of school, is it? Like there's got to be a sort of unusual way to get there.
Yeah, unless you're in Germany, I imagine it's probably a bit more streamlined there.
True, then you're 15 and it's straight into high school. Cool. And what about what's going on with this year's event? Is it at Shambles every single year?
Yeah, so essentially Cornell, the head brewer at Shambles and owner, is our biggest supporter. He's actually part of the executive committee this year as well. And he took part in the first year. We held that down at Hobart Brewing Company because it's down at the Red Shed, rest in peace. And he came along. He was a little bit reluctant, but then when he got there and saw it and enjoyed it, he was like, "Oh, this is amazing." So he's a former science teacher himself, Cornell. So he has that science nerdery. Also makes beer, so it's right up his alley. So ever since then, he's kind of said, you have to have it here, essentially, and he's made a unbelievable offer, so you can't resist. So we've always had it at Shambles since that year. And this year we're kind of, Reid, do you want to fill us in on what the event's doing? Do you want to take over here? Because you know the event well.
Yeah, for sure. So this year we're running the Brewers Gauntlet. We've put the challenge out to our brewers to create a weird, wacky scientific experiment and to pit them all against each other in a way that is the event at Shambles. So I've actually, Matt, you wrote. How about you lead the intro bit, because I know the other bits.
Yeah, sure. So essentially we had a list of challenges, and there were challenges like make the most banana rich beer that you can, or make it a beer that reminds you of dessert, or make a beer that uses floral kind of components. All these kind of different ideas that kind of the idea is to push those limits of those things. It kind of came from a conversation I had with Riley from Spotty Dog, the head brewer there, where we were talking about how much we loved banana, Latin, Hefeweizens, and how there's not enough of them out there. And so essentially this is my secret way of getting someone to brew a Hefeweizen. Will, you know how much I love them. I think
it's just everyone in the beer industry is always trying to get people to drink more Hef, or at least certain brewers, and unfortunately it's just not working out for us.
So hopefully this event will change that. But that's not the main crux of it. That's not the main point. Essentially, we're getting them to do these different challenges, push beer to the limits, and we can really kind of drive the conversation as well around certain elements. So, talk about the esters and whatnot that have come up through yeast in Hefeweizens. Talk about how adjuncts are really important for certain beers and what that means for fermentation. Carbonation. There was one challenge that was around carbonation, because again I want to talk about carbonation and how important it is and how much impact it has on the final product. So it's just these different kind of challenges essentially. We call it the Brewers Gauntlet.
Cool. And I guess typically, I mean, my understanding, the other ones, it's often you sort of have one thing you want brewers to focus on and they compare it to each other, right? So it's a bit of a different approach. Them all having one experiment rather than doing the same experiment and comparing the beers at the end.
Yeah, we've changed it a few times. So every year we try and have a different theme, and we kind of discuss it as a group, and then we also get Cornell's input as well. So last year we had the brewers all brew the exact same beer. So they had the same recipe, same ingredients, a few kind of minor things that they could change. But the idea was that they brew on their own equipment, and we see what the end result was. What we found out from that was that brewers are a bit cowboyish, and they all went pretty rogue, adding way more hops or doing something completely different, or So we ended up with 5 very different beers, but it was super interesting as well to compare those 5 on stage. The year before that we had a break because we were just going through changes and getting the kind of executive committee set up, etc. But the year before that we had control versus experiment. So essentially each brewery brewed 2 beers, one which was the control and one which was the experiment. So had that classic scientific control versus experimental design. And that was really fun because you had these 2 beers brewed by the same brewery that were meant to be compared, that were somewhat similar, but in a lot of ways, lots of differences as well. So I think that year Shambles brewed a hazy, split the batch, and actually took the haze out of the beer for the second beer. So brewed hazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Reid, you've been in the audience for some of those. Like, I've never been able to make it down, which makes me feel awful because I'd really love to check it out. But it seems like the crowd do really appreciate the sort of knowledge sharing and what's going on the night, right?
You get this buzz in the crowd. It starts before any of the brewers sit down at the top of the panel. Everyone's really excited to learn about what's going to happen, and because I think there's a little bit of a mystery behind like what is going to happen at the event, what types of beers will be given. There's that kind of that build up, that tension to it as well. And then once all the beers come out and they're all explained, there's a lot of excitement for people tasting them all, and obviously people choosing which one's their favorite, what elements they do like, which elements they're not so fond of, and it really varies across everyone as well. And you can bring a group of mates as well, a group of friends, and really just nerd out about the little intricacies that make beer. It's really fun. And I'm running around on the microphone, so you get to hear all the little side conversations that are happening in the background of that the panel can't really hear, but there are always really interesting conversations around flavor profiles, or I wonder how they did that, or that's really interesting, like what happened there, or like taking the haze out of the hazy it was really interesting to hear from the crowd, like, how do you think you would do that? And there's always lots of really good questions as well from the crowd. And I think that interactive element of Science Made Beerable events is really key to bringing people in, and they know that next year they really want to come and they want to bring this set of friends so they can all ask really good questions again as well. So that's really exciting. I think we get a lot of, I'd probably need to do some analytics on it, or we could, but how many people have been to an event beforehand? That would be a fun question to ask.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot of repeat offenders, and we get a pretty unique kind of mix for National Science Week events, because most National Science Week events kind of bring in the science crowd, whereas we kind of straddle that kind of bridge between the science crowd and the beer nerds, the beer, like the people who are always getting the latest beer.
And what breweries are involved this year, and also how do you sort of pick them?
Yeah, it's always really hard to pick, and we always go back and forth a lot between the members of the committee and working out who we want to get. But then you've also got to reach out. They say no, then you got to find someone else. So it's always a bit of a struggle, and always a bit of a it's fun, but it does take some time. But this year we're stoked because we finally got Decane involved. Been long-time supporters and fans of them. In fact, that's what I'm drinking right now, Decane Pills. So awesome to have them on board this year, up from Launceston. We've got Spotty Dog. Like I said, when thinking about the idea for this year's event, it actually stemmed from a conversation with Riley from Spotty Dog and around our love for Hefeweizens. So stoked that he's on board and he is making a Hefeweizen. So I'm very pleased. Actually, it was funny. Klimt messaged me, the owner, who you probably had on this podcast or at least interviewed before, but when he found out that I had talked Riley into brewing a Hefeweizen, he messaged me and said, "You sneaky little wheat weasel, you." So it's just so funny to see how Spotty Dog has changed from this IPA brewery to this lager-driven Hefeweizen brewery. It's great. I'm loving it. We've got Communion Brewing from the Northwest Coast. Love what Andrew and the team are doing up there. As a former Northwest boy, I love that there's breweries from that up that way of Tasmania. So great to have them on board. And we've got Welcome Swallow as well, who are based out at New Norfolk, who does Nigel was essentially a home brewer and then upscaled and does some really great beers, especially some really great hazies and things. So excited to see what he's going to bring. Reid actually knows Nigel as well.
Yes, know Nigel. Well, used to drop in all the time. They've got a beautiful brewery out there in New Norfolk, full of plants, full of light. So
beautiful murals as well, right? So beautiful murals, yeah.
It's just such a beautiful communal space. They open it up to the public for events, and they try and run. It's a real communal space, which I really appreciate about Welcome Swallow. We just had the winter feast as part of Dark Mofo down here in Tasmania, and a lot of the brewers were representing themselves there at the feast and serving their crafts. So I was able to run into Nigel down there as well and ask him how he's going with the brewing. So I think they're getting onto that right now, following the surge in all of the winter feast activities and brewing that they've been doing. And he's very excited to. He's given us a little sneak peek into their challenge, which is based around Cloud 9 being floaty and some water chemistry within their beer. They're very excited to test and try some out.
Cool. So for a hazy brewer, they're kind of effectively, ideally making the haziest beer they've ever made.
Yeah, essentially. As soft and pillowy as can.
Nice one. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Cheers. G'day listeners, Will here. I'm joined by Sam Bethune, the technical sales specialist at Bintani, and we're here for another edition of Bintani Brewery Boosters. Sam, how are ya?
I'm good, Will. It's good to be back.
One of my all-time favourite Crafty Pint segments. It's revived, and Sam, we're here to talk about hops. How can brewers think about working with their hops smarter, more efficiently, better, more productive?
Look, hops get a lot of the limelight in beer conversations, so I want to touch on it a little bit without going into too much. We know, obviously, brewers using T90 cryo hops and things for a long time. Just a bit of a reminder, we're seeing a lot more different use cases at the moment for some of the more advanced products. Tetra hop and iso hop are for downstream additions. If you need that sort of tweak or to dial in your bitterness is not quite right, there are solutions for that, as well as maintaining great foam on your beer as well. So don't forget your advanced products, and if you need a hand, give us a yell.
Yeah, and what about terpenes? They've been around for a while now. How are terpenes looking?
We've seen they probably launched a couple of years ago and got a lot of the promo sort of side back then, but it is something we've seen continually used and continuing to grow in this market. Great for flavour attributes and differentiation in a hop front, for either replacing part of your hop bill with the aroma compounds of that to get better yield out of your products, and also for some of the more fruit flavourful or out there flavours like the cannabis sort of flavours as well. Way to differentiate your beers. I think since we last spoke, probably one of the main things we're seeing in Australia versus other markets is probably a more subtle use of these characteristics to really augment or change a flavour profile in a different way rather than dominating and being over the top. So any brewer sort of use, we're sort of seeing between about sort of 5 mil to 15 mils a hectolitre being a sort of sweet spot for those when used in conjunction with removing some of your T90 or other sort of dry hop load, just to really add that extra layer of complexity with it. From Abstracts that we distribute, one of their sales guys is far more into branding than me, described them as the Instagram filters of beers. So if you're using existing hop sort of things, you can add that little filter layer to it and get that pop.
Nice. And, what about if brewers are looking to get more value out of certain hop products or anything like that? Is it a good way to use them?
Good question. So 100%, it's no surprise. While it's getting a little bit more imbalanced, there are way too many hops in the world. So encourage all brewers to not be paying too much for hops. Speak with your suppliers and see, where there's good value around, particularly in bittering varieties and things when you're looking for an alpha acid contribution. Costs vary in a huge amount. And if you've just been using, an early boil edition for a long time because you've had a connection to it or like the name of it, you might find that there's better value moving to some of the other higher alpha oily varieties, particularly from New Zealand and out of Europe.
Yeah, okay. And what about sort of designing recipes when hops there can be a little bit of variation from year to year, like how do brewers approach that?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I hadn't really given enough credit to for in the brewing days before going in hop selection was just really seeing that difference on farm to farm and geographical differences within hops on a year-on-year sort of basis. So if you are purchasing hops, be it through us or any other suppliers, really encourage brewers to try and make those sensory notes on them when they're using them at the start of the year, see how they change over the year and from batch to batch. And from Bintani's perspective, it's something we've really doubled down over the last 3 or 4 years to be selecting every lot of hops that we get for to try and maintain consistency with the aroma and characteristics of those hops year on, year out. So brewers that are lucky enough to get their volumes up to go and do selections of their particular batches, by all means. But for us, looking for across the market to try and maintain a level playing field, going to get consistent hops batch on batch from us.
Wonderful. Cheers, Sam.
Thanks.
Welcome back. And Matt, maybe this one's for you, but one thing I really noticed is, I mean, it feels like such a well-supported event. Like you have these industry suppliers that have been sponsors since, I imagine, day one or the early days. Like, um, were they quickly on board, or did it take some explaining what you wanted to do? Like, what were the early conversations like with both brewers and ingredient suppliers who have sort of come to the party?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we had to kind of prove ourselves to some extent. So, like I said, when Cornell from Shambles came to support us, he was kind of dubious, I guess, with the first event. But then when he took part and saw how well it went, he quickly supported it. So I think there was a proving stage. We had the National Science Week funding, which we've got to some extent, either whether a national or Tasmanian, which has always been, great support because that's money. We need money to run an event. But I think it was probably the second year. I don't reckon we had the support in the first year because that was pretty hodgepodge, bring together kind of no events background between Kelsey and myself. But the second event, we started reaching out to ingredient suppliers because that's when we wanted the brewers to brew their own beers, essentially, specifically for the event. And I reckon we reached out to HPA first, so Hop Products Australia. Had a meeting with OJ, who's now the CEO, I think, of HPA. And essentially they were keen to support it in some way. I think OJ being a former brewer, having I think he's a master brewer, isn't he, from CIBD? So he understands the importance of knowledge and science and whatnot behind brewing. So I think they were very happy to support the event, and so they provide hops for the brewers. They've also provided cash for the event as well. So incredible support. And then probably the third year we were like, well, we've got hops, but there's actually 4 ingredients in beer. So we'll reach out to some other people as well. So we reached out to Voyager. So Stu up at Voyager, love what they do. That really kind of independent, like organic kind of really sustainable kind of approach to farming. Absolutely love that as my kind of ecology background, I guess. And then we've also had Bluestone Yeast support us a number of years as well. So obviously with Derek's background in science, he was quick to jump on board as well. So I think it's just people understanding the importance of science, wanting to spread that kind of message and understanding that education is key.
It's really cool, actually, because of the event, me coming into it as just a regular person, wasn't quite sure what the companies were behind it and who's sponsoring it. You obviously hear about the big companies that go in, that brew and produce products, but you don't hear about those other ones like HBA and Voyager. So it's been really cool to understand the almost the organizations in the background that actually do a lot of work to build craft brewing across Australia. So without it and without that sponsorship, it wouldn't be seen.
Yeah, that's a good point, Reid, because I guess if you're in the industry, you know who HPA are. Like, there's no way you can escape that. You know them, and you know the great work they do. But if you're outside of beer and you're just a punter drinking it, you might not. You might see it on a little decal, HPA, because they've got Galaxy hops in there or whatnot. But otherwise, you might not actually pay attention to what it means. So it's great advocation for them as well.
Exactly. I thought Voyager was a brewery and I was trying to search it from the first time I heard it. I was like, what is this? I was like, there's nothing popping up. I would like to go there. No. But that's good because it's getting their brand out there as well, which is nice. It's a quid pro quo from the event, at least.
Nice. And I mean, the event really sells out every year, and this year you've got a few other mini events. What do you think drives the popularity? Is it just beer's perennially interesting along with science, or is it you feel like those return customers are just scooping them up really quickly, and people don't ever want to miss it once they've been to one?
Yeah, I think it's the return customers. Definitely get in quick. It always sells out. It doesn't have a huge capacity. Shambles it's in the back room of Shambles, which is a great space, but it's also a very strange shape. So it's a bit of an L shape. So you're limited in how many people you can have there. So we have about a capacity of 80. So it sells out pretty quick. And we could probably move somewhere else and expand it, but then we wouldn't have that great backdrop, wouldn't have that support that Cornell provides. So we're happy to keep it intimate. I think we pushed it to 100 one year and 100 people, and it kind of got a bit rowdier. So maybe it's better to keep it intimate and lower. So I think that's one of the kind of drives of why it sells out quickly, past participants kind of picking up tickets quickly. But yeah, we're kind of thought about, we're always having it in Hobart, and even Duquesne, like Will's always kind of offered to host it up there because they've got such a great space. And, if we were based in Launceston, we'd probably consider it a bit more, just the logistics of doing an event that size in Launceston. Kelsey and myself both have 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds each. So like that takes up a lot of time and involves a lot of logistics. So we've always wanted to do it kind of in different places. And so this year we're actually expanded a bit. So we're doing the Hobart event still with the regular kind of rigmarole, but we're also going to be doing events in Launceston and Burnie as well. We've got Duquesne, who are from Launceston, as the event, and we've got Communion from Burnie, who are part of the event as well. So we're going to do these little taster events essentially in these 2 regional spaces at their breweries just shortly after the event. And essentially what it'll be a one-on-one with one of us from Science Made Beerable and the head brewer of that brewery, drinking that one beer they brewed for the event and having that conversation. So it's like a mini kind of segment taken out and on stage in those regional cities. So we're stoked to be able to take it to other places, essentially.
Great. And what about sort of, maintaining it through other times of the year? I know you had a scholarship. I'm not sure if it's still in position, or are you sort of finding that you just don't have the time, or maybe that's why you're the saviour there, Reid, bringing more people in to sort of give yourselves more capacity to do more, right?
Yeah, it's tricky managing time when it's a volunteer-run not-for-profit, and we're all working full-time otherwise, or we're managing kids or running businesses. It can be tricky to find time to essentially run the other kind of things we want to do. So yeah, we did do a scholarship a couple of years ago. So what we did was we got the brewers of 2023, I'm going to say, who took part in that. We got them together to brew a beer, like a collab beer, on the day of the event. And then the profits from that collab beer went to fund a scholarship that Emma Penny was the recipient of. She went on the IBD General Certificate in Brewing, and then scored a gig over at Guinness. So great to see that kind of come to fruition and really benefit somebody. And we'd love to do that again. It's just working out about how, working out capacity. It's always a tricky thing to manage. But, we've always got things going on in the background. The issue, I guess, with becoming a not-for-profit is there's a lot more administrative kind of things you need to do. There's a lot more managing money and all those kind of things, managing people as well, to an extent, making sure, back in the day it was Kelsey and I kind of messaging each other on Facebook, should we do this, should we do that kind of thing. Now it's kind of a collective. We're making sure that everyone's voice is heard and everyone has input. So it's just managing all those different moving parts means that it can be a little bit trickier. But we want to keep going. We want to keep doing different things. We've got some great ideas for other events we want to do during the year. It's just that making sure we have that time can be tricky.
I feel your pain. I'm the secretary of the Northcote Community Garden, and it's non-stop. I'll tell you what. You think you're getting yourself into something easy, and it never ends.
But it's so satisfying volunteering. That's why we do it. So if anyone wants to join the Science Made Beerable executive committee, or even just become a member, there is scope. So just reach out to us. Send an email. Go to our website, beerablescience.com. Usually the elections and things happen in November, so a couple of months' time from when this podcast goes out. So yeah, please reach out. We're always looking for new members.
And for any new members joining, it's a very welcoming committee as well. And there's lots to do, and there's lots of ideas that you can run off with as well if you'd like. So very open committee, and it's a joy to be part of the committee it's my first year here. So you've done a really good job setting it up and building a lot of capacity around with experience as well within other committee members. So it's a really nice committee to be part of.
Thanks, Reid.
Great. And I guess turning things around a bit, do you think, obviously you started this and Reid, you got involved because of the interest in scientific communication. Do you think beer, like we're sort of telling an interesting enough story all the time? I feel like I'm reading, I don't know, sometimes about other drinks or other foods, you read kind of about more excitement. I feel like there's so many ways brewing can kind of be advertised as interesting science. I don't know how often that's happening, or maybe it is happening often enough. What do you guys think?
I think beer's got better. It's come a long way from what it was 10, 20 years ago. Like, you think about how much more the average punter would know about a beer and what goes into it than they would have 20 years ago when, they were sinking Bogues Red or Cascade Blue tins. But then again, maybe that's just my own journey as well, in terms of now I know so much more about beer and what goes into it. I don't know. I think it has come a long way. I think there is more scope to do more. For example, I would love to see the water chemistry put on the side of a beer. We're always talking about what hops are in it, what grains in it, what yeast is in it. No one's talking about the water chemistry. So I don't know. There's lots of different things we could do differently, and I think there's always ways to push it further. And I think there's a lot more for people to learn about beer and the science behind it. But as a science communicator, I think I'm pretty biased towards spreading the joys of science and the word of science about everything, and thinking that science can bring new and enjoyable kind of opinions to people as well. So I'm probably a bit biased for this question. Conflict of interest.
Yeah, if you go back 15, 20 years, in terms of beer, yeah, there were those mainstay, like big brewery kind of beers, but then, the smaller craft breweries started to really take off, and then, you start to see a Pacific Ale, and what's this Pacific Ale? And then you see like other variations, and then you've got IPAs come through and NEPAs and all of these beautiful creations coming from abroad as well, and your Hefeweizens and your Pils as well, which are starting to become more mainstay on the kind of the Australian beer market. I guess they're just being consumed more, so they're just staying there, which is really exciting for craft drinkers at least. So I think it is changing, and that people are opting to choose independent breweries as well, and I think that's having an effect on how many that there are popping up as well, which is great for a place like Tasmania, where the brewing is that there are little breweries that can pop up and sustain themselves, which is really interesting. And I also think that those breweries popping up as well, they're almost like a mini show and tell in and of themselves. So normally the equipment that's there it's almost like the draw card, the attraction. It's like we brew this and we brew it right here, and that will draw people in as well. It's almost like doing a lab tour or bringing someone into the science experience, which is great for the education around how beer is made as well, and not just one type of beer, but lots and lots of types of beer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the draw card for us having the event at Shambles, is that you are nestled within the fermentation tanks as you are listening to us talk about beer while we drink beer. Like, it's something romantic about that, even if it is just a bunch of stainless steel.
Yeah, it still makes for a beautiful place. Like, particularly that Shambles room. Yeah. It's very sort of industrial but romantic at the same time. And something that is obviously quite special about Tasmania is the fact that you do basically have to go to the places to drink the beer. Like, it is a place where small island, small population, small brewery seems to be sort of like run across it. What breweries are exciting you guys at the moment?
I guess I've already said to some extent, and I love Spotty Dog and I love what they're doing. I think Riley coming in with that German knowledge background. You know, he was educated at a German beer university, so him coming in with that knowledge means that there's some fantastic lagers. When he can convince Klimt, he's doing some Hefeweizens and other beers. So I'm loving that kind of more German European style that they're bringing. Always have a soft spot for Hobart Brewing Company. Love what they do, and love like that. There's breweries popping up everywhere. Like the East Coast has like 4 or 5 now, I think. So there's like these little kind of beer trails you can do as you're traveling around. So yeah, it's fantastic. But I think probably Spotty Dog has my heart at the moment.
I think in terms of breweries and beer makers across Tasmania, there's heaps popping up at the moment, which is really exciting for those who partake. And for me, beer is beer, and you can get some really good ones, and you can get some ones that you go, oh, that one's interesting. But for me, it's really it's the space for me. It's the community that the brewers can bring to a town or to a city. I was talking to a friend today, and they were saying, oh, it's really funny how you can have these small country towns, and the thing they describe themselves as, or how they kind of categorize the town, is we've got a pub and a post office. Like that's it. But it's focused around the main establishment, and you can really see there are some communities across Tasmania which don't have an establishment or don't have a brewery or a pub. So Fingal, for instance, talking to a couple of community members there, they're saying there's no real. There are places to connect, but there's no one real place to connect. So it's funny how beer can bring people in and build community as well, in a place to gather. It's like the local watering hole, I guess. So for me, building that sense of community and that sense of place is really important. So places like Welcome Swallow, they have that beautiful space out in Norfolk. Even in more industrial spaces like Brew Lab in Derwent Park, just north of Hobart, they've got an incredible space. They're really packing a lot into a tight venue, but they put a lot of effort into building community around that area. I'm sure that other spaces as well, like Easy Tiger on the East Coast, always holding events, making a beautiful space, bringing in different types of cuisine as well into their kitchen, just to keep it fresh, but also to give some variety to the locals as well. So it's just those types of communities, the community spaces that breweries can bring, I find really exciting.
Great. And before I let you both go, I mean, what about, science comms more broadly? We've spoken a lot about beer, but, do you feel like important messages are cutting through, particularly in a place like Tasmania? I won't make you talk about salmon farming or anything particularly controversial like that, unless you're chomping at the bit too. But, do you feel like some of those messages are still cutting through?
It's a tricky one, I think, with science communication. It can sometimes feel like an uphill battle. You can feel like, well, you can get in your own little bubble, and you can get surrounded by like-minded people who understand the science and are keen to have a critical mind and think about new things. And then you might get a wake-up call when you find out certain people are going to vote for a certain person who contradicts a lot of well-known science. So there are wins and losses, but I guess if it wasn't here at all, then we'd be in a terrible place. So I think it's just about keep on fighting, keep on spreading the good word, and hopefully we can convert some people to the importance of science, essentially.
I think one of the important things about science communication is making the science as relatable as possible. And when people hear science, they normally hear the school subject, and they think how hard and challenging and difficult it is, and they tune out straight away. Whereas realistically, science is happening everywhere. And I think the beauty of Science Made Beerable is the beer, the beverage you're drinking, the beer or the drink you're drinking, whatever it is, science went into that. So it's making it relatable, making it accessible to the average punter. And it's just this way of being, very patient and calm, but letting everyone understand that science realistically is just curiosity and asking good questions and not taking things at face value, and being critical about the world around you. And you can do that with literally anything. You can try 2 beers and ask some really good questions, and that's science in reality. So I like Science Made Beerable in terms of its ability to just really make the science of beer accessible, and then get people interested in it. Because once you've got people first step through the door, you can hopefully pull them and a lot of others through as well into the wonders of science.
Excellent. That feels like a wonderful place to leave it. Reid and Matt, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much, Will.
Cheers. The Crafty Pint Podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.